1 with liberty.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, first I'm going to call the roll. That's okay. That's okay. So let's see. Are you?
How's that?
Good. All right.
Kate, would you call the roll?
Certainly. Gary Cunningham.
Here.
Nathan Long.
Here.
Doug Bryson.
Here.
Deanna Hinton is absent and excused. Steve Griffiths.
Here.
Riley Hoagland.
Here.
And Bruce Robinson.
Here. Any changes or revisions?
You do have the option to change the order of proceedings tonight in order to avoid the possibility of people making public comment. Making ex parte communications with you. So you could have your deliberations before public comment and possibly also the final order before public comment if you choose to.
Okay. Got that. Thank you. So I hear we have an announcement. Planning Commission appointment or reappointment of Doug Bryson. Yay! Congratulations.
This was reappointed. Actually, he was forced to continue to serve until his successor was appointed, and they appointed him as his own successor.
Excellent. Welcome back. It's a pleasure to have you.
I'm not going to be here that long tonight.
Well, let's hope that's true for all of us. All right. Has everybody had a chance to look over the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 7, 2015.
We have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. Now we come to public comments on non-agenda items or matters not involving a public hearing. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak for 3 minutes on? I remind you, sir, that this may not apply to the docket items we're looking at tonight.
I understand.
Thank you, sir.
Ken Roulette, Lincoln City. I've been, I guess, somewhat dismayed by the economy and the direction that's been taken by past administrations of the City Council. I'm going to go over a few brief numbers, and then I'm going to have a couple of comments. I'm not going to address any current issues that you're going to be voting on. So, basically, when I went back, I pulled some numbers from 2010, 2011, and those numbers showed that we have 65.2% of our kids on free lunch and food stamps. 90% of them get a free breakfast, and 58% of them actually ate meals through the summer food program. Now, these numbers go back as far as 2010, and some folks are going to say, "Hey, Great Recession, 2007, 2008, how we doing?" Well, it hasn't got a whole lot better. In fact, we have 56% of all the pregnant women in Lincoln City are on WIC and food stamps, some sort of public assistance. Not a good thing at all. Fast forward to the 2013-2014 STAR report for Taft High School, and it was 65.2% on the 2010 numbers. Now fast forward to the STAR report, which is required by the State Department of Education for every educational institution in the state, and we've now gone from 65.2 up to 70.4. And then you go, well, we're kind of headed in the wrong direction there. But it doesn't get better. Let's look at some leading economic indicators as far as what's coming down the pike. In a few years, the population that's sitting over at Taft Elementary School are going to be the kids that are over at Taft High School. You say, well, how are they doing? They're at 78%, not 65, not 70, 80%. Now you say, well, those are some pretty rough numbers. Well, let's dig and drill down a little bit further and say, well, how does that impact things? What you have is the Taft High School on the state rating is performing in the bottom 5% of all schools like demographics, so it's not cherry picking, like demographics in the entire state of Oregon. A sad, sad statement of affairs. Now, I'm not here to bash educators at all. What I have and what I see from my past work on Wall Street of 8.5 years, I study ecosystems and I study their strengths and their weaknesses. And unfortunately, the educators are doing their damnedest when these kids are dropped on their doorstep every morning. Unfortunately, the kids probably haven't had anything to eat overnight. They get a free breakfast. They're given a free lunch. Susan Walke, newly elected to the City Council, was part of the backpack program, stuffing food in backpacks, so the kids might get something to eat when they get home. So I have a couple of more comments, if you can bear with me just a half a second.
Make it
And the net outflow of that is you say, well, poverty is running rampant, and it continues to slide down the hill. And where we're at, and I verified through the Lincoln City Police Department, is that what you have crime-wise is that per 100,000, Lincoln City is 54% above the Oregon average, 70% above the national average, and a whopping 67% above in violent crime. So, you know, if you don't have it, you look to acquire it. Usually those means if you can't get a job and you're depending on some sort of public assistance.
Excuse me, sir, could you back up? I got the last one, 80% crime. What were the two numbers before that?
Were you looking at the STAR programs from the...
No, when you said crime per 100,000.
Crime per 100,000, what they do is they go to the FBI.
No, I don't want an explanation about
Okay.
how it worked. Just tell me the three numbers you gave me.
Okay. As far as the crime numbers go, is Lincoln City is 70% above the national average, 54% higher than the Oregon average, and violent crime is 67% higher than the national average. So we have a severe crime problem, and if you trace it backwards all the way to the grade school and you come through, poverty is an issue. And the numbers are really understated, because when I talked with a state economist in Salem...
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
That's enough.
Okay.
I just one brief parting comment, if you could tell me what you think the Land Use Planning Commission can do about this?
Well, I think the big thing that the Planning Commission can do is work to promote business and regulations that allow for business to have a pro-business environment, so that we get year-round jobs, that we get anchor tenants. It doesn't mean a Walmart on every corner, but it does mean some full-time family wage job institutions sprinkled throughout the city so that we can sustain ourselves.
I think your plea falls on receptive ears. We believe in the idea of promoting business for Lincoln City. I think we also have a new mayor and a new city council that also is receptive to new business ideas. I certainly hope you would also take this message to them.
You know, I've had an opportunity to meet with most of the councilors, some of them on multiple occasions, and unfortunately, at this point in time...
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step down.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Were there any more public comments on non-agenda items? I have a sign-up list, Joe. Oh, Ken, you were the only guy on the sign-up list. So I'm going to move on to final orders, resolutions, and written communications. Let's see. Would you read that, please?
This is adoption of final order, George Seniga, file APP 2015-01. The Commission is about to vote on a final order for an appeal of an administrative decision. The property is located at 6345 Northwest Logan Road in the Rhodes End neighborhood. The file number is APP 2015-01. The appellant and property owner is George R. Seniga. The final order is a written record of the Commission's decision that followed its public hearing, deliberations, and tentative oral decision made on April 7, 2015. The Planning Commission's decision is to uphold the decision of the Planning and Community Development Director regarding the calculation of required side yard setbacks and manipulation of grade. A final order reports the findings of the Commission, explaining how the decision relates to the evaluation criteria. It includes the vote of each member, briefly states the bias or basis for any minority votes. The vote on a final order is not meant to be a second vote on the subject of the hearing. In the final order accurately reflects the findings of the majority, and the decision commissioners should approve the final order.
Thank you. Good job. Is there a motion to adopt Final Order 2015-02 for the decision on file, APP 2015-01?
I move to approve the final order.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I can't vote on this motion because I wasn't here, so I won't be voting.
All right. Okay. Griffiths?
Yes.
Hoagland?
Yes.
Okay. And Bryson is abstaining. Cunningham? Long?
Yes.
And Robinson.
I believe I abstained in the last vote. It
Okay.
requires me to abstain this one. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Abstained in the tentative oral decision, so yes.
Yes. So I'll be recusing from that vote.
Okay. And the motion carries.
All right, a notice of this decision will be mailed to the applicant, property owners, and all others who participated in this hearing, in person or in writing. This decision is appealable to the council. All right, now we have public hearings, deliberations. You didn't take my sheet, did you, Kate? All right, this is a continuation of deliberations for vacation rental zone Southwest Quadrant Tuesday, on Tuesday, today, April 21st, 2015. Our next agenda item will be deliberations on files CPA and ZC 2015-01. The vacation rental zone for the Southwest Quadrant of Lincoln City. The public hearing for this matter was opened on April 7th. The hearing was closed on April 7th, and the record was held open to accept written testimony until noon on April 15th. Deliberations on this matter were continued to tonight's meeting. Planning Commission's role in this process is to consider any written or oral testimony as well as information from staff and make a recommendation to the City Council, who will hold an additional public hearing. The City Council may adopt the Planning Commission's recommendation, may adopt a different recommendation, or may take other action, including declining to make a decision. Tonight, we will conduct deliberations and arrive at a recommendation to forward to City Council. Because some time has passed, I will ask if any member of the Commission needs to declare an ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias in this matter.
Mr. Chairman, I do. I reside in the area that you're talking about.
You will recline. Thank you.
So you will not be participating and will not be voting?
Correct.
Okay.
I will be leading this position.
Okay. I was trying to figure out why you said you'd be here for a short time, and now I
understand. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of a commissioner to participate in this matter?
Actually, I believe we're past the period for those challenges.
Are we? It's right here highlighted on the page.
I understand.
In this meeting's electronic packet, commissioners were provided with all information in the record, including the staff report and exhibits, and any written testimony submitted. Minutes of the April 7th hearing are also in the packet. Commissioner Diane Hinton has submitted written deliberations, and her comments are included in the packet. At this time, I will open the discussion for deliberations. Commissioners may consult with city staff and the city attorney, but do not ask for new evidence. Does city attorney or staff have any comments concerning legal issues raised during these proceedings? Is this after we close deliberations?
No, basically, before you start
Yeah, okay.
deliberating, you usually ask us if we've got any guidance. And in this case,
Jump in. Yeah.
I think at the last meeting, I read the language from the actual ordinance 2014-21, which was added to the comprehensive plan, as well as the language from the actual purposes and locational criteria from the ordinance itself, the zoning code for the VR. So the advice I can give you is you should be thinking about applying those criteria when you're looking at these maps.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Well, the matter is returned to the commissioners for deliberation.
Mr. Chair, can I just let you know that I'm up here, I've got maps that if you like, just for your convenience.
Thank you very much.
Question for Richard Townsend. On page 75 of our handout here, there's a couple statements about commercial zone and what it means for moving from a residential to the R zone or VR zone. And it mentions that they'll have the ability to build larger than 5-bedroom and potentially more than 16 people. Is there some limitation on that, or can you explain to me what that really does allow?
Theoretically, yes, someone could build to commercial standards. In other words, get a building permit and build to commercial standards rather than get a residential building permit. And that would mean they could build a dwelling bigger than the 5 bedrooms that's allowed now, assuming the lot was big enough.
But I'll put this in if someone was to purchase 4 lots side by side and decide they wanted to put a hotel on.
Could not do a hotel. Hotel's not an allowed use in the zone. The only difference between the VR zone and which does not allow hotel, or the only difference between the R1 zone, which is what these properties are zoned now, the R1 zone does not allow hotels. The only difference between the R1 zone and the VR zone is that in the VR zone you could have a vacation rental dwelling full-time, rather than as an accessory use. In neither zone is a hotel allowed.
Okay, but in a commercial entity, you could go how big, for instance, then?
As long as it's a single-family dwelling, the way the ordinance, the way our code is written right now, there would not be a maximum size.
So it'd be up to your department to okay it or bring it to us?
We would we would have to review it just through the normal building permit process. Said it was more than 5 bedrooms, it has to get a commercial building permit and be built to commercial standards. But you see, in places where it's normal to build big houses, there are big houses. Several thousand square feet. We have one house in Lincoln City that's a little over 6,000 square feet right now, and a number that are in the 4,000 or 5,000 square foot range.
Well, I was reading what seemed to be relative possibilities of horror stories in some of the comments that were being made, and that's why I'm asking this question.
This matter has come up recently, and we've been thinking about it. Actually, I think one of the best solutions would be just to amend the VR zone to put a cap on the size of the house that could be built, square foot cap on the size of the house.
Okay. And we can do that retroactively after we've created it.
Wouldn't be retroactive, but it can be done. Certainly, you can recommend to the city council that they do that, and that can be done, but it would not be retroactive at the time of its adoption.
Okay. But it would be consistent going forward, and if nobody's asked for something beyond that at that point in time, they'd have to be compliant with the new regulation.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question that was related to that also. If a VRD can upgrade to commercial standards in a VR zone, does that impact whether new zoning meets number 9, our transportation goal? Because in that, you mentioned that the number of people in the new VR zone is going to be limited by the fact that, VRDs cannot have more than 5 bedrooms, cannot sleep more than 16 people. But if we don't have any idea of how many people might be accommodated by a VRD that upgrades to commercial status, can we safely say the transportation goal has been satisfied?
You raise an interesting point, and I think we can. Probably the analysis needs to be revised a little bit, because right now, in the R1 zone, someone could build a 12,000 square foot 30-bedroom house or whatever, as long as they got a commercial building permit. It'd still be a single-family house. So that situation doesn't change with the rezoning in terms of what can be built in the zone. And maybe the analysis needs to say that, basically say that it doesn't allow anything to be built that can't be built there now. And therefore, there would be no change in in the transportation effects.
Go ahead.
We do have the ability at this time to decide that we might want to include certain houses in the zone or other houses out of the zone. I mean, that's pretty much what our deliberations are about now.
Right, where the zone should be applied.
Okay. There was a request that was made, and it was talking about Fleet Street at 6500 block and how the street across, the houses across the street towards the ocean from this house was in a VR zone, and they were not at this point in time. And the comment was, how can the person across the street have rights that I don't have? Okay, arbitrarily, how did we, not arbitrarily, how did we decide that Fleet Street to the west is and Fleet Street to the east is not?
It happens any time you draw a line. No matter where you put the zone line, someone's going to be in and someone's going to be out. Someone, depending on which side of the line you're on, you can be helped, possibly, or you can be hindered, depending on what the zone change is. The suggestions that staff has made are based on things like proximity to recreational resources, proximity to the bay, to the ocean, in the northwest quadrant, closer to the casino and that kind of thing. Also proximity to shopping districts, some topographic factors, and so on. While trying to keep some areas where they're not allowed, in order to protect, or at least to address the concerns of people who don't want to be in the VR zone. So you have areas where VRDs would be allowed only as an accessory use rather than as an outright use.
Thank you.
Which one are you referring to? Oh, that was the old neighborhood zone in Nelscott, right? That's the Southwest Beach area that's hatched on the map. I think we should not include it in the VR zone, and I think the reason for that is that there are a lot of homes there that I think are affordable to rent on a monthly basis and are affordable to purchase perhaps by people who work in our service industry. And I think we should keep that as it is. It should not be part of the VR zone.
I agree with that.
If I may, where area has the most occupied VRDs right now, per population or neighborhood? What is the highest percentage of accessory use?
I don't have figures on that, but I can tell you that showing on the screen now, we have the Olivia Beach area. So that immediate area, and then probably going up to the north, up Coast Avenue, up towards 10th, I think you find them quite a few there. That's probably the greatest concentration actually in the city.
In the entire city?
There might be some more up, right up at 39th, up by up near the casino, but certainly in the southwest, those areas have the highest concentration.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to propose if we could work on this like we did the northwest quadrant, is just take small sections and work our way down. It'll be less confusing and easier to work with. Maybe starting north
to south
and work down to south.
Thanks.
One more general question before we go there, and that'd be of Richard Pacello. I just want to make this clear in everybody's mind. Moving from an R1 zone to a VR zone is to move in which direction and why?
It's from a purely residential district to a mixed-use district. The VR is a mixed-use district. It's not a commercial district, it's not a residential district, it's mixed use.
And is that an upward or downward movement?
I think as Richard stated, the fact that the only real difference between the R1 and the VR is the removal of the limitation on the accessory use limitation. I'd say it's probably an upzoning for those going to the VR.
I'm asking this question because I can feel that from some of the comments we've received that people feel taking a property is at hand if they're limited in their ability to rent their house out. And that's just it's a comment that's in these.
Currently, if you're in a residential district, an R1 district, actually, and other residential districts, not just R1, but if you're in a residential district right now, you have the accessory use limitation applicable to your property. If you're being rezoned to VR, you do not.
So that's actually an increase, but not a decrease at this point.
If you're going to VR, it's an increase because a limitation is being removed.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we understood that.
I just want to make a comment about the occupancy discussion. As I recall, when this issue was raised, and again, this is not the subject of this hearing. The subject of the hearing is applying the VR zone to properties. But the issue came up about, does this mean that now you can have as large a retrofit and start having a hotel in a VR zone? And as we did discuss, all the standards of the R1 zone are still applicable. So you're not in a commercial zone where hotels are located. But in terms of occupancy, the code actually, I remember hedging a bit on that because it really wasn't what we were here to talk about. Occupancy in excess of the lodging house limitations shall only be permitted in commercial zoning districts or such other districts as the council may authorize by ordinance. And that's in the ordinance that the council adopted in terms of the safety standards. That was the, it's in ordinance 23, and I believe that language also got pulled out when we did the safety standards ordinance back in April, was it, last year? So I think it may be in need of clarification, because certainly permitted in commercial zoning districts could be read one of two ways. You could, commercial zoning districts as defined in the VRD license ordinance, or commercial zoning districts as specified in the code. So I think we've got an issue here of, did the council really want to see retrofitting of VRDs in the new VR zone? So I just want to clarify that the question was asked, and it's been stated several times now by people that, oh, this means that you can now build giant houses, and I'm not sure that that's what this language says. And I think what I'm clear about is that we need to clarify this.
So if they happened to buy 3 lots and made a $10,000 square foot house, or 10,000 square foot house that had an occupancy of the commercial standard, which there isn't a limit, that could be possible.
I'm not saying that that is possible. I'm saying that this language that's in the adopted ordinance needs to be clarified. We also have the adopted Uniform Housing Code, the 1997 Uniform Housing Code, operating as well to place restrictions on the occupancy. So the code was written to basically say that they would be permitted only in commercial zoning districts, and commercial zoning districts in the zoning code means, you know, certain specified districts. In terms of VRDs, it means a mixed use as well. But the language here says, or such other districts as council may authorize, indicates that commercial certainly was there, or such other districts as council may authorize, seem to be a reference to the mixed use districts. And I'm not sure that we're clear about that.
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if that's something that we should be cleared up before we sort of move forward on making decisions of where the VR zone should be. I don't like making decisions about new zoning on muddy water. As Mr. Apicella says, that it's not quite clear about commercial and what the standards are for how many occupied our building, the size of building can be.
Purchase of three lots and build a very large building and 2 lots in the VR zone or residential zone.
Right now, in the R1 zone, a person could buy multiple lots and build a big house.
Oh, they could?
Could build a big house, but it could not be rented as a VRD. Because
Well, right now, they couldn't exceed 16 occupancy if they did it now.
Right, for a VRD, but they could presumably get a building permit under commercial standards for a big house with a large number of bedrooms for their own use.
10 or 20 bedrooms.
However many they want to build, for their own use.
So the muddy ground really becomes one of enforcement of the limitation of occupancy on a VRD, in a VRD.
Yeah.
There isn't an occupancy in the VR zone for a commercial building in the VR zone. There is no occupancy limit.
No occupancy limit.
Yeah.
Well,
If it was built to commercial standards, that's right. And well, unless what Mr. Apicella was saying applies for VRDs.
That's where we're not clear.
So let's map out a process whereby we end up with a great big hotel in a VR zone.
We cannot end up with a hotel in the VR zone.
Yeah, not a hotel.
Some small step where we can not enforce some law and end up with a big hotel like up in Rhodes End, a big hotel in a VR zone. We don't want that, right?
Or more than 16 or 20 people in a VRD.
Yeah, I've changed the word from hotel to a very large house with 40 bedrooms, you know. But
Or a large house that sleeps 30 or 35 people, you know?
What's the definition of a hotel or a 35-room house?
I don't have it in front of me. There's building code terminology. It has to do with the nature of the occupancy. We do have a definition in the zoning ordinance. It talks about transient occupancy. I don't have that right in front of me. But
Where we're at.
I think so too. If we have a route to building a hotel in a VR zone, I don't like it.
Mr. Chair, I just want to specify, when you talk about hotel, you don't mean hotel. You mean a big VRD.
I'm not talking about something that's got a cash machine in the front door, kind of a hotel. But I'm talking about a house that's sitting on a street in a residential neighborhood, 6 houses down from anybody here, that's operating with 30 to 40 people. 15 cars in the parking lot. It's too much for the concept of a VRD. To me, it is. That's a hotel, whether it's got a cash register or not.
that's where I believe we need to get the clarifications on this before I'm comfortable with moving forward.
Well, is this a venue where we can recommend to the city council rules change around this, or is there
Absolutely.
rule change that comes to mind?
Absolutely, you can make that recommendation.
Well, thoughts, guys?
Yeah, as long as we're there, there was another one that was coming to my mind in that same category that we ought to have clarified. Went right out of my mind, so let me think it through. Let's go on.
I mean, corporations are allowed to own these properties. It's not individuals, right?
That's right.
So the difference between, I guess this is where I was going, the difference between a VRD housing is that when we make it a zone, a corporation could own 5 of them side by side.
Right.
But if it's in a residential area and it's accessory use, one person can own 1, right?
That's right.
So we open the door to a corporation
that's
box of territory.
Right. I want to say that's mostly right, because under the terms of the agreement with the annexation of Rhodes End, any VRDs that somebody owns in Rhodes End don't count against that limitation on 1. So someone could have 1 elsewhere in the city and 1 or more in Rhodes End if they had it before the annexation date.
Okay, at this point in time, that's the rule, but we're in the southwest quadrant, and we're thinking that terms. Once we make this a VR zone, then a corporation could actually move in and buy several of them side by side.
Sure.
Have there
Something else to think about.
Has there been VR zone approved in the northwest quadrant already?
No.
This is the first
Well,
part of the city
there was
to be...
made a recommendation, and the city council had a hearing and actually significantly reduced the area that staff had recommended, and then you recommended with changes. The city council reduced that, but they have not put that on the ground yet. They delayed the
It's not a
effective
VR zone.
date, so it's not effective anywhere yet.
I think these are all items that we need to discuss and get nailed down before we go forward. I agree. How about purchase?
What about purchase?
Well, if I'm a homeowner across the street on Fleet, maybe I'm really scared that once they get their foot in the door, they buy the whole block across the street from me.
They,
They, the corporation,
Could.
yeah.
and retrofit every single house to some standard that's obnoxious.
Or tear it down and build the commercial standards. That or that.
Right.
And
So-
any individual could do that, too. It doesn't have to be a corporation.
No,
I'm just,
Right.
the VR zone, right. Multiple units becomes available. So can we control multiple units in this kind of a zone, or is that against the law, or land use?
The limitation to one owner applies to the residential zones primarily because of the accessory use limitation. The VR is not in a residential zone, it's a mixed-use zone, so it doesn't apply. What you're really talking about is not so much the ownership issue, because it can be a corporation, it can be multiple individual owners or other entities. You're really more focused on the commercial construction, and frankly, there's just a couple words in the ordinance that say commercial or such other designations. Probably the best, had we written commercial, parentheses, GC, RC, Nell Scott Business District or whatever, parentheses, to clarify what those were, this whole retrofitting issue wouldn't be concerned. But because that language was taken in the context of all the mixed-use zones are lumped in there, it's been characterized that the VR automatically allows full-on commercial-sized VRDs. So that's where if...
I don't think we'd want to discourage that at all. I like the idea of business VRD being operated to commercial standards. I mean, I'd like to see them all go that way eventually. I understand how that's not likely to happen immediately.
It's that we don't have an occupancy limitation for the VR zone. That's clear. It would appear that the lodging house limitation applies, except when you're in a commercial zone, and the interpretation is VR is a commercial zone, even though it's mixed use. But I can argue that language the other way, so that's where we need clarification.
Well, I would want to recommend, at least to the city council, recommend that we stop using, and maybe stop using the term commercial zone with this, or at least applying commercial residence standards to VR. Would we add verbiage that says this is a VR, it's got a limit, regardless of its...
You're correct in that we are, and we did talk to the state about this. The state has no problem with us establishing an occupancy limit associated with the VRD license, which has no relationship to the building code. Yeah, so it doesn't matter, residential code, commercial code, we can establish an occupancy limit as part of the licensing requirement. The state's told us that, they've encouraged us to do that. When the council talked about doing it, they decided not to establish our own occupancy limit. We just decided to hang our hat on the state's lodging house limitation.
So we've already asked and answered the occupancy question.
Well, the council just deferred to the state. The problem is we've now got the issue of, are we authorizing commercial retrofitting in the VR or new commercial construction in the VR? I don't think that's what was intended by the language, especially since it says commercial zones or such other zones as the council may authorize. I think it's something you can include in your recommendation to council that they clarify. It doesn't answer the question of where the VR zone should be applied.
We haven't gotten to that yet.
But certainly the size of the VR zone certainly might be affected in terms of your recommendation if you're worried that you're going to be creating extra large VRDs.
Well, that will make my decision on what the verbiage of it says compared to where I'm going to draw that line. So that's why I would like to see it cleared up
One thing
before I
you-
even make a decision on the zone.
One thing you could do is do it sort of in a contingent manner where they say, assuming that loophole is closed, this is our recommendation.
But can we assume that?
No,
Council didn't do it last time?
we can preface our recommendation on the assumption that,
You agree with this, will we, what we recommend?
I think that's what that...
Something like that,
Council will do whatever it wants anyway.
So,
or not?
But like you said, make a different decision set, probably, going forward, which side.
I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm not so sure I'd go anywhere with this thing if we don't resolve this problem.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to deal with...
I personally flat don't want VRDs that have got 30 people sleeping in them, period.
Not near any residence.
Not near any residential.
Can we make a recommendation that in the R1 zone, VRDs have a limit of 16 occupants?
In the R1 zone, VRDs have a, yes.
Regardless of its retrofitted or commercial built standards.
I mean, the VR.
Yeah, in the
In the VR zone.
in the R1,
In the
it's
Oh, I'm sorry,
zone.
not R1.
In the R1
VR
zone.
zone, I'm sorry.
In the R1 zone.
Not the R1 zone.
The VR zone.
VR zone. I understand what the R1 zone is, 16. Could we make a recommendation in the VR zone, regardless if it's retrofitted or commercial standards? Can it be a 16-person maximum occupancy?
You certainly can make that recommendation, yes.
And Mr. Avicello is suggesting that we would make a recommendation in terms of the licensing ordinance. Is that correct?
yes, and in fact, I think all you need to do is specify the commercial zoning districts in the language that's already been adopted as being those actual commercial zoning districts, not the mixed-use districts.
What do you think, guys?
We can then move forward. Feel like
What do you
moving
think the
forward.
next step if we do that? What more do we have to do in terms of crafting
Strict.
language and so forth? Is it clear on this recommendation?
I think a motion would probably be appropriate. If you could just say we recommend that the VR be limited to 16, not to exceed 16, and that the ordinance be amended. And if it was so recommended, then your recommendation as to the application of where it goes on the map is as follows. If it may be as simple as saying if it's not amended, you don't recommend any of the map changes.
Like when the Northwest, how they started with a smaller size versus the big size, I think I feel more comfortable with a smaller starting size. As I recall, it was said it was easier to include more areas and neighborhoods than it is to take out the areas that...
It's easier to add than to subtract.
Correct.
That, and plus the fact, anybody can always apply to have their home become part of the VR zone.
Right.
So for that reason, I recommend we start very cautiously.
And that's why I asked earlier, what's the most concentration of VRDs currently?
Okay, so now we've got another thing on the plate. I think we ought to close the loophole part of the deliberation with a motion and a vote, and then we can start talking about limiting or reducing the recommendation, conditioned on the city council accepting the first recommendation.
I recommend that we put a motion forward that would put a 16-person cap on our occupancy, both in our licensing agreements and in our code, if possible.
In a VR?
In a VR zone.
Second.
That's one way to approach it. The other way is to take the language the council has already in its ordinance and say, when we said commercial zones or such other zones as we may designate, we meant commercial zones meaning GC and RC and Nelscott Business District and some other Taft district, and when we said as such other zones, that's what we meant. We meant the mixed use zones, and we haven't specified those. But the number 16 works just fine if you just want to say VR shall be limited to 16.
Just said.
May want to just do it in terms of recommend the council take appropriate steps to limit VRD occupancy to 16 in the VR zone. And then in whatever form that ends up taking, as long as the loophole's closed, I think that meets what your intent is.
I think so. Try again.
I'll strike this time.
Can I move? I'd like to move the VRD, that we recommend to the City Council VRD access limited to 16 occupancy in a VR zone.
I second it.
I'm not quite sure that you stated exactly that the VR occupancy limit, I think you...
I said access, I meant occupancy.
Occupancy.
VRD occupancy be limited, occupancy limit be 16 in a VR zone. VRD occupancy limit be 16 in the VR zone.
And I second that recommendation.
So far, so good. You all right with that?
It is, of course, it's not actually the ordinance in front of you, but it's that you're saying is necessary to be clarified in order for you to apply it.
Correct. Just making a recommendation that's going to go with this, however it goes. So we have a second. Could we have a roll count on that vote, please?
Certainly.
On that motion?
Okay. Griffiths,
Yes.
Long,
Yes?
Cunningham, Hoagland,
Yes.
Robinson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Right, so. All right, corporations' ownership of multiple buildings. Do we want to take that question up before we chew away at the blue lines? Are we done with that one?
I think
What are your feelings?
if it's a 16 limit, and that's our main concern, regardless of who owns it, they'd still have to follow that. I feel comfortable with that.
Well, I heard a concern that the corporations were going to come in and construct blocks and blocks of VRDs to some egregious standard.
I think that if we started with a very small, not very small, but a smaller section of the blue, we could see what would happen in that area, and not just say okay to everything.
I guess I want to emphasize that although this was advertised very broadly and the map is very large, it need not be. And so a lot of what the fear was is that entire neighborhoods would become corporately owned. It doesn't even have to, again, it doesn't have to be a corporation, but that it would simply become entirely devoted to VRDs. You can solve that by simply not adopting as large a VR zone.
Blocks, so you're talking about blocks of VRDs in this map.
The map is very large.
All right. So, you're very good at driving this neighborhood by neighborhood business. Take over.
Well, I was thinking, tack the first part on the top up there, starting at Southwest 6th, and just work our way. Let's take that little section going down to 10th.
Sorry, say that again?
Let's see, right there. Let's go from 6th down to, what is that, 10th right here?
Yeah.
That's 9th, I think.
Yeah, or that's 9th, but then you got these little pieces here.
Right.
So if we just work now and figure out what we want to do with that, leave it the way it is.
And we're talking about down to the north of 10th, that whole block.
Yeah. I think probably talking about...
What is that street there?
This green area down here is Canyon Park.
Canyon Park.
So I'd say north of the Canyon Park is probably the area you're talking about
Right.
now.
Okay.
At that area.
So keep it the same, you're saying?
Yeah.
As is?
Do you know percentage-wise, Richard, how many VRDs are in any of these sections that you could give us information coming into it?
There's A few. I don't have a number.
Can you show me on the map where Olivia Beach is?
It's off the map to the south. If you look...
You see where it says
I'll show you some sort of spotting features. If you look at down here, you see this angled shaped lot down here. On the next map, it disappeared. Well, let me figure another thing. Just trying to get something that will make it easy to spot. Well, anyway, Olivia Beach is down here. This is Coast Avenue coming down, and Coast Avenue continues on down here, and this is Olivia Beach. Here's Bard Road. Pretty much is divided right at the dividing line between the two maps there. Thank you.
All right, so back to...
Actually, I can show you. See this sort of a little bit L-shaped. Well, let me do it down here. This L-shaped lot at the very bottom. It is this lot right here at the top.
I forgot the question.
Waiting.
Starting if we want to accept.
No, what your question is.
You just wanted me to show where Olivia Beach was relative to the map that we had there.
Can we go back there? Could you make that map a little larger, the southwest 10th Street area? Can you?
Bring up Google Earth.
Never mind.
I don't think I can, actually.
Because I think we got a request in the written testimony that there are 3 families that live on, wait a minute. At 1223 Southwest Fleet Street, want the west side of Southwest Fleet between 11th and 12th rezoned to VRD. So that's right above, it's to the east of the park there.
Yeah.
That there. No, not the whole thing, just that one side, right there. They want that included. And I think Diana Hinton, in her comments, recommended that that be included. Oh, let me check to be sure.
Is there a fee to be included into the VR zone?
Huh? What?
Is there a fee to be included into the VR zone?
If someone wants to apply to be included, yes, there is. And it's, what, is it 1,500, Kate? 2,500?
2,500.
2,500 is the application.
So if we do not make the map very large and start small, we are then asking every person who would like to be included to pay $2,500 to be included in the VR zone.
If they came in individually, yes. They can also come in groups. It'd be one application in a group. Just depends. Like if you want to get your neighbors together, you can all apply one application.
I misspoke. I just wanted to correct myself. Deanna Hinton did not recommend that.
Well, everything north of Canyon Park, I'm good as leave that as is.
Agree.
Agree.
Now,
Stay the same. Yes.
Yes.
So that,
There's not a lot of houses on that road on the south side.
So,
really, there's a lot more blockage of views from up there. I mean, if you look north from a lot of that. The north. No, that's
A lot of sense.
We didn't get any requests from people on Southwest 10th to be included. We did get requests from those 3 families on Southwest Fleet to be included.
No, I'm fine with the way it is, north of Canyon Park to stay blue.
Let's move on then.
All right,
What are those long?
we're looking now south of Canyon Park. Are you talking about those
Yeah.
long, large lots?
That's a Sea Cliff. There are a lot of homes on in that area.
Yes. There are a lot of VRDs. It's a high bluff beach with very, very good views there. The road up Coast Avenue going up from the park goes up very steep and then goes out sort of a plateau when you get up to the higher level. But again, there's a lot of VRDs in there.
Richard, can I ask a question? On east of 101 in that area, could you, Deanna
One out here.
Hinton was suggesting removing the east side and the west side of Southwest Dune, north of the, I think she meant south of the park access, although she wrote north, to Southwest 14th from the VR Blue area. So she would be meaning that area be removed, right? Where's 14th?
Let's see.
14th is going to be south,
9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th.
right in there.
14th.
Yeah. So she was suggesting everything east side and west side of Southwest Dune be removed from the VRD
So
zone.
basically everything east of Coast on that section.
She was saying no view, it's more residential than rental, would allow for commercial zone in a residential zone, and those were the points she was making in her.
I guess the question is, department put that in there, why?
Again, it's an area, certainly on the west side of Dune, it again has very good views. The property owners in there, I don't know if it's all of them, certainly probably a majority of them have asked during the consensus project to be included.
And we got written testimony with that request, too, that they be included from one property owner there.
I don't know why we'd exclude them.
Thanks, Stephen.
Is there, so say we approve,
I'll just show you, this is what the consensus group has suggested, that this is the area that actually came up during the hearings on the original proposal for the yes/no zone. This area on the east side of Dune, north of 14th, had been proposed by the consensus committee to be excluded, and the property owners there asked, at least some of them asked to be included. And as I recall, the council was in favor of that. So this map is the consensus group's proposal.
when was this conducted?
2 years ago.
2012?
Yeah, I think it's been about 3 years ago, I believe.
Yeah, in 2012, perhaps going into 2013.
2 years.
It started in 2012.
So what's the consensus on this part on Dune?
This is, what's this street right here?
Can we go back to the older map, the blue map? There we go.
14th? Okay, I'm good with that block. That's, I guess it's down to 14th? That hump shape down to
14th is here.
I'm good with that down to there. Everybody else?
Fine.
Any other questions about that section? All right. My question on the next bunch down here, what are these huge lots that are in blue? Are they on the ocean?
Yeah.
I mean, they're on that's on the beach, these
Oh,
big...
yeah, like this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just beach.
No VRDs on the
Because
beach.
it's owned by...
Can't build anything on it. Actually, I think Lincoln County owns that.
Okay.
That-
Why is it blue?
It has no value. It can't be built on. Anything that's west of the vegetation line can't be built on anyway.
It's blue because it has to be some zone. It's technically in the city.
I see. All right. So what is the first 5 or 6 blocks and streets there south of there on the far east side? What is the topography of the land down there?
It's, again, it's high bluff.
Great views.
Great view, certainly on the west side of coast. East side probably has interrupted views, depending on which way you're facing.
And a preponderance already VRDs?
There's a large number of VRDs in there, particularly on the west side of the coast.
Do you guys have any inclusions or exclusions you want to talk about in that area? I'm looking down to...
Can you raise it up a little bit?
I don't know the street names.
To Bard.
Bard Road.
Bard, okay.
I think there are definitely more VRDs on the west side of coast than there are on the east side in that area.
Do we have anybody who wants to be excluded or any reason we want to chisel away at that zone?
I don't think anybody's requested to be.
Well, see, we're not being awfully successful at carving this thing down into... Okay. So I'm okay with it all the way down there to Bard. How about you? How about the rest of the commissioners?
Agree.
All right.
The area we have. Yeah,
Where's this area at?
Area meaning...
Oh, that's right, it's south of Bard. That would be, let me see if I can point there, right here.
Well, that's already commercial.
No, that's not commercial.
I thought Brown was commercial.
No. What's that area there?
Brown.
That's multifamily.
That's
I think.
multifamily.
So it's not
okay.
changeable, so. That'd be downgrading the zone.
And there's very little development in there right now anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
So everything down south to Bard Road, keeping the same.
Now we're getting down into the textured neighborhoods, lots of streets.
Well, I think a lot of that is Olivia Beach, and I think Olivia Beach is predominantly VR, although there are people who own second homes there, and there are retirees moving into that PUD. So it's a mixed-use
Well,
PUD.
Olivia Beach, it starts about right here.
And it goes,
Circles,
Olivia Beach starts here.
yeah, right there and goes
The
down
only
to
the
there.
reason I'm doing this, Commissioner Long, is because people at home can't see that red dot because it's coming right off the computer. So Olivia Beach starts here and goes down here.
Yeah, I figured they couldn't, but it was actually for my benefit to let you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We should all have those.
I have a suggestion south of Olivia Beach, like southwest 29th, and up to southwest 28th, which is not marked there. That is an area that's very similar in terms of the housing that's there, very few VRDs, and it's very similar to the hatched area in the Nelscott area, and I think that should be removed from the VR zone. Everything south of Southwest 28th Street.
So you're talking about...
From Highway 101?
From Highway, these
Yeah.
7 lots along 29th?
Yeah, there are a few
10
VRDs in there, but
proceeding
not many.
Over this way?
And that's primarily residential, with permanent residents or renters living there.
Is that coast running through there?
Yeah,
So you're talking about everything east of coast?
no, south of 28th Street.
Got that part.
This is 28th.
229th, that
Right.
one segment.
This is coast here, isn't it?
I can't see you.
That's beach,
So this is coast,
yeah.
and this is dune up here, yeah, okay. So you're saying basically follow
Get rid of that one.
anything south of 28th, including these over here?
Yes,
Okay.
there's a
There's a line there.
tutoring center there. There are people who live there full-time.
Where do you draw the line on that, Steve?
Just knock it out.
I see the area. I just wondering if you're going west here, how far west? That whole section to the road. This, this.
Right.
Okay. Tell me again why?
There are a few VRDs in there, but it's predominantly residential, and it's, in character, it's much like the area in Nelscott that has crosshatching there. It's a place where, a lot of people live full year-round.
Okay. Commissioner Griffiths, just, if I can just make sure I'm getting this right. This is 28th, so anything south of 28th, these lots along here, plus all of these, we're following this line that extends the south, the south line of 28th out to Anchor here?
Right.
All that is what you're talking about taking out?
None of that is part of Olivia Beach.
Right, and that's the area you're talking about
Yes.
taking out. Is there
Yeah.
anything other than that you're discussing right now to take out?
No.
Okay.
I'm good with that. I agree.
It's basically a single row of about 12 houses.
Nelscott area? Leave
Huh?
it?
Are we...
Nelscott area looks fine.
Larry? Okay, let's move down. Up. What did we have anything else above that area or to the west of that concerned about? So I guess we take the big jump down to 35th.
Does everybody want to leave Nelscott out of it?
Personally, think that that's probably the rest of it.
The rest of what?
The other 4 areas.
So you're saying south of Nelscott, that little blue patch down
South Cutler City.
all the way through Cutler, nothing?
I would like to wait.
I agree.
I want to just leave that like that.
You mean no VRD?
Right.
Right.
So that part right there between
We're Nelscott
south
Heights.
of, that's south with 35th down to,
Nelscott Heights right there.
correct, and taking that out, right?
I don't think that's what he's saying.
He's saying everything south of, everything.
Down with this too.
I don't.
He's saying Cutler City tapped everything.
I'm saying, for
Or
me,
that, Nelscott Heights out?
out.
Out.
I think I want to start small, like I said, and just leave that like that. That's how I feel.
I'm still a little unclear. Are you against the VRD zoning in those areas?
These separate.
Test them yet?
I would like to start small with this, the largest percentage of VRDs in the city from starting point?
Well, let's work our way down, and we can say no to all
Yeah,
of it as we
okay,
go.
okay, that's fine.
So so Nelscott Heights, you want to take it out, correct?
I would like to take it out, yes.
Okay.
I'm still a little unclear.
Okay.
If you want to just say, I want to say no to including any of these in the VR zone, that's one thing. If you want to propose that we stop considering the remainder of the zones and change this hearing to consider this section only, that's a different proposal.
Okay.
And I'm okay with you making either of those proposals.
Okay. I feel that area being the most densely populated with VRDs is a great starting point. We had testimony of creating the islands, if you will, of VR zone throughout the city. I would feel more comfortable starting with a base block, and then as more people wanted to be included, we can rezone it.
Can I comment on that?
Absolutely.
I think I don't have any problem myself with Nelscott Heights being included because it's jam full of VRDs right now, I think. I do have a problem with Taft Heights because I think that's splitting a neighborhood, and I have a problem with Cutler City for the same reason I didn't want the Nelscott area included, because that area provides a lot of housing for people who live and work in the service industry here in town, and I think we should leave it VRD free. But I don't have any problem with Nelscott Heights being included.
Good.
Are we talking?
That's
Nelscott.
Nelscott.
I believe we had testimony on including the Southwest Anchor Avenue. Is there a reason why that wasn't included in this VR zone? I see that it's
You mean just north of there?
correct.
I think that's all commercial hotel anyway.
That's, I believe that already allows, that's a commercial zone, that allows VRDs already.
That's all that Anchor Avenue.
Okay. So that's why. And you're saying that south of that, 38th,
39th, or,
already densely populated with VRDs?
that's my impression, yeah.
Do you know if that's the case?
I don't know how many there are, but there's several up there.
There is driven that a few times over the life of my many years. There is quite a few VRDs, but a lot of that's not buildable anyway.
Yeah.
And
The roads in there are steep and narrow, so I'm not sure where people park, to be honest with you, but there are some, and we don't get a substantial number of complaints about them. So.
well, let's
We'd like both of the issues from you guys
I
left there.
think I would accept that.
I think Nelscott Heights is, for me, is fine. We didn't leave
I
it
would
blue.
accept that.
Okay. Do we want to trim it? Have any input on trimming it in any way, or
And rezone.
expanding it in any way? I think it's pretty closed in with commercial. There's not much we
Yeah,
can
there's,
do
yeah.
with it, but that's that block in the upper right third. Is that equally dense in VRDs, sir? Block
What,
in the upper right third of on the east side of,
Up in here?
I think that's Southwest 35th, yeah. Yeah, that section over there, what is its characteristic?
I'm trying to remember where they are. There's probably, as you go east, just about everywhere in the city, as you go east, the density goes down.
I think I've been up there. It's very steep and it's smaller houses.
there are probably not a lot of VRDs on the east side of that.
I think on the west, because basically that property line through the middle of it is sort of the peak of the hill there. On the west side of that property line, on the east side of whatever street that is that winds through there, those two houses do have some
Great
pretty good
views.
views there.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Any other input on those neighbors?
neighborhoods?
I'm inclined to leave it the way it is.
Me too.
So you're leaving that the way it is?
Mhm.
Okay.
We come to the split question.
Taft Heights.
I would like to remove that.
I agree.
I agree.
No VRD.
Gary, how do you feel?
One request. Trying to find it.
It was,
I think we had oral testimony from people who spoke on both sides of the issue for that area.
What's the terms? Finding
What are the characteristics, sir?
Well, on it's relatively high bluff there. On certainly in the west side, they have very good ocean views. I think the slope continues up as you go east. So properties on the east side have views as well.
Wait a minute, I'm on the wrong place on the map. Is that Taft Heights there?
Yes.
Yes.
What is this section up above there? Oh, it's the same thing, I'm sorry. Phew, blind as a bat, even with my glasses. All right, sorry, I've finally caught up. Go ahead.
So, as I said, it slopes up to the east. I think properties on both sides of the beach have pretty good views. Certainly on the west side they do, and I think they also tend to build high on the slopes to capture whatever view they have on the east side. Trying to picture what's on coast.
Any thoughts on the VRD density now?
There are, actually, I drew the line based on where the VRDs tend to be concentrated in that area. You have testimony that the number of VRDs in there actually is dropping. I think there was, I want to say 8 that were in there, and I think you had testimony that there's 5 left now.
Were they all, do you think they were all west of beach?
No. I think that 1 or 2 of them are east of beach.
But they could still continue to operate as VRDs if they're not in the VRDs.
Right.
Well, accessory use VR.
Right,
There's
right.
a difference, and if they're operating now.
and the testimony that we had, he did say that.
You would like to drop it.
Correct.
I'd like to drop it.
Yeah, I'd like to drop it.
Gary? Sounds like we'll drop it.
Okay.
We saw it.
Can we tackle the last one as a block? We split it up.
Yeah. Cutler City.
Well, could you flip back to the consensus committee on this one,
On
this last segment?
Cutler City.
Cutler City?
So the dark green was yes and the yellow was no?
That's right.
By those yellow ones.
On the south side, I don't recall why they did that. Many of them, like virtually all of them, the further east you get, they're almost all undeveloped at this point. In fact, they're all in the same ownership. You have testimony from the owner of those asking for them to be in. And at the time the council was considering the yes/no zone, the people here on this south, on these lots south of, was it 69th, asked, some of them asked to be in, and I said owners in the extreme eastern part has asked to be in. And so that's basically that's the change I made, was to include those.
Well,
Or that arrow shape,
That's a park, Josephine Young Park, that what you're
so
talking
we'll
about?
leave it out.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I'd like to think, what is the street there that goes directly south from the letter S on Southwest 62nd Street? The first letter S.
Harbor.
Yeah, Harbor, then Jetty.
Harbor. Okay. So it looks to me that the consensus committee and what you've done, everything west or north on the north side and everything west of Harbor is pretty much in alignment with the consensus committee.
Right.
I tend to give them a great deal of weight. Looks like they can't quite make it out. There's a couple of blocks there that might be different. Are they the same?
He told us the difference already.
North of 69th, it's identical.
Okay. Go back. Really? That's
This is 69th
yeah, okay.
down
okay.
here.
Okay. Anyhow, that's I recommend we just accept everything west and on the north side and west of Harbor, and then talk about this section at the bottom.
We've gotten requests on people wanting to be in the VR zone, the property owners, am I right?
The property owner out here in the extreme eastern part asked to be included.
One lot or multiple?
Actually, she owns, I think, probably all but one of these. She doesn't own this one, but I think all these others in here, she does own.
I mean, I believe right now there's just one VRD.
There's one house in there now.
One VRD at the end down there.
And she could still continue to operate as a VRD whether or not she's in the VR zone.
Right. If it's, yes, the existing ones certainly can. If they can take if the ordinances that the council passed would allow that property to accept the settlement for 180 nights. If that hasn't gone into effect, if and when it does, then they could have up to 180 nights at that one.
What about the, criteria that VR zones be close to commercial areas? That one isn't close to.
It's not close to commercial areas, but it's right on the bay. That was the main differentiation in my mind, is right on the bay. And that, if you, almost all the VRDs that are in Cutler City are on the bay. That seems to be where the desire is.
Let's see, I think, Riley, you were pretty much no on this, correct?
Correct. I don't think it meets the criteria, VR zone.
I would certainly cut it quite down from that. I would actually, if you can go back to the blue, I'd actually, everything west of Southwest Ebb and north of 62nd, basically sort of make a loop that way. And everything east not be in.
So you leave all this in
Between Fleet and Ebb?
down to, on the
Right.
west side of Ebb.
And remove everything between Fleet and Ebb, and everything down 69th, remove all that. Be out of the VR.
What's the street that's, where's Southwest, is it 68th? Is the next one up from 69th there?
This is 68th.
That's 68th. So you're saying everything south of there be removed?
Right. Well, and between Ebb and Fleet.
Mm-hmm.
What about the, let's see, we have 69.
It's pretty much just all residents between Ebb and Fleet. It's not bayfront and there's no views.
There's also not a beach there for kids and to play on, is there?
Low tide, there's plenty of beach.
Yeah, okay. It's timely then.
One of the complaints was off of that section, and they said that they lived on the east side of Fleet, and they were objecting to the fact that they were on the east side of Fleet, and the people across the street were going to be able to rent their place out as a VRD, and they on the east side of Fleet were not going to be able to. You know, and apparently, like I said, what's the decision point? The backyards or the street? You know,
Yeah.
but they wanted to, you could tell by the comment they were making that they wanted,
Yeah.
not real comfortable with how much we carve out of this. And if we do, maybe it's a better way to carve it through the backyards. Everybody facing Fleet Street is not included. Everybody facing Ebb Street is included. And then you won't have the across the street people complaining about the guy who's got the driveway coming next to mine, and he can and I can't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thought.
So you're saying, like, draw the line at Southwest 62nd, and when it comes down and turns into Fleet, maybe
I'm saying,
that 65th there, that goes up between the first road?
I would say if they're on Ebb, do, and if they're on Fleet, you don't.
Right, and I'm just looking at the property line. Actually, it's pretty straight cut down through the middle.
Might work.
If you're on Ebb, yes. If you're not, no.
Excuse my red pointer. That's
Yeah, use your red,
65th.
tell me what you're talking. Whatever
So
that street is.
basically come down here, cut to this property line, and cut down through there to 69th.
It's a dead end.
Does
Yeah.
that run on down? Or?
A dead end to the tide. There's riprap there. I did.
Where?
Crosses the
Uh-huh.
road in front of them, I'm seeing.
Yeah, there's landlocked lots there that are bayfront lots. They have access over other people's property to get there.
Other people's property, if,
With easements, with legal, yeah.
I feel like that it's far removed from the main part of the city, that, if there's code enforcement issues, if there's parking issues, transportation, there's not a light there at 63rd or 62nd, to and for, into and out of Cutler City. I don't see a real big, services side of that benefit that.
What I'm thinking is on the south or the north side of 62nd, there's quite a few VRDs down there now, and west of Ebb, there's a few. Yeah, there's a couple on the east side.
front Ebb then.
I do like the original idea of saying yes to both sides of Ebb, but
So the property line between Ebb and Fleet is make that the cut.
And take it down how far? To 69th or only to 66th or whatever that is?
well, I think we're going to have splits on that one. Why don't we take it down? Why don't we take it down to 69th and decide how we all feel about taking it down to 69th? Take that lower half, that lower layer there as a separate chunk.
All right, and I'm fine with the property line. They're split down to 69th
West of,
between Fleet and Ebb.
if you're on Ebb, yes. If you're on Fleet,
From, was that 65th, where the split would start?
Down.
yeah.
So you go down,
So what you're proposing is going down 62nd
correct?
to here,
Right,
down here.
correct.
Mm-hmm. No?
So,
It's too far out of the city.
Cross it.
What's,
It's still too big?
Richard, what's the street? You have 69th and 68th, and then is it 67th? And what's the one in the center there?
let's see, we got, it's hard for me to read the 69th, 68th. That looks like it's 66th.
There is no
And
67.
65th up here. Right.
What's that one up there that you're pointing at? What's that one where the arrow is?
65th.
Maybe only going as far as 65th.
I know there's still quite a few vacation rentals south of that. I mean, the property line between,
Uh-huh.
the west side of that property line, there's a few VRDs in there.
So we have, one gentleman wants to say no to the whole section. I'm good with that one row of houses that's to the west of Fleet, that one, eliminating that one row of houses.
So you drew on the map there. So he's,
Come down 62nd, then 65th, over half a block, and then down to 69th.
All the way to 69th, right? Basically say no to that strip of
Yeah, so taking out
yeah.
these 3 blocks of
single row.
houses
3
along
blocks.
Fleet.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, then now,
Is that, I don't know,
that was
is there going to be a motion?
that.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna,
Are you okay with that,
I'm
Mark?
okay with that part.
I can live with that.
Gary, you're good? Okay. So we, basically, that section, we've got 4 okay and 1 no. Now we're talking about either all of everything below 69th or the west part of it, west of Harbor.
I think all that should be taken out.
Currently, VRD.
Sorry?
BRD south of 69th characteristic.
There are a few, I believe.
I think it's important to have not the whole coastline in the Cutler City area VRD zone. I think we need to keep some of that residential, and a good chunk of it residential. So I would recommend anything in that southern part not be part of the VR zone.
So the rest of the blue.
Saying that they would, those currently as VRDs would be grandfathered into the,
They could settle, they could accept the settlement of 180 days, assuming that goes into effect,
or they could apply to be put into the zone.
right? If that doesn't go into effect, then they could still have accessory use, whatever that level of use is.
I have a question for Riley. If we voted no and had no VR zone in Cutler City, do you think roughly would people there who have VR, I think what percentage of that would people apply to be in the VR zone? We don't know yet, but we might want to let the community just do that on its own.
Right. I mean, that's how I just don't see, for the 13 qualifications for the VR zone, I don't see it applying to Cutler City, period. Other than it's got beachfront, but I don't see, you know.
And a recommendation that comes fractured, we can put forth a recommendation that says, well, we feel, not very strongly, but we feel we ought to do this or not do that. I think that's sort of what the city council, some of them will certainly be watching this performance. They'll take away that we're moderately split on this one. I don't have an opinion about that section other than the 3 blocks there that were recommended by the consensus committee, and I feel very strongly that they did good work in
in the absence of any feelings about it, I would say I'd like to include those 3 little blocks, but
They could apply for it also. If you have,
They can,
if you have the whole neighborhood saying, hey, we want to apply, then we know that that's the case. But
I agree.
to just, I mean, you're going to give up the better 3/4 of Cutler City to VR zone and then give, you know, the bottom half facing south. Oh, well, let's keep that open for residential.
So I guess we have 2 who want to throw that out. We have 2 I haven't heard from yet.
I'm sorry?
The whole section, that whole bottom section south of 69.
I'd rather throw it all out.
Yeah.
Throw that.
Well, that's 3. That's not equivocal. So toss it, please.
So what?
We're going to recommend to toss it
Okay,
South of 69th.
south of 69th.
okay.
We haven't voted on all the
Voted
other
all.
sections. Gary, how did you feel?
Well, if there's a property request that her property be included, saying no to her, comfortable with that.
Right, okay.
'Cause we're at the development. Property in, necessarily want to pay $1,500 or $2,500.
And owning that. I can see why.
And she can still use it for 180 days, even if she's not in.
It's only for that one that exists now.
Right, for the one that exists.
The other 8 won't, she'll have to apply.
But they're undeveloped, right?
Right.
If she was in a VRD, paying $20 per fob. Well, you know, 3, you already matter, but I
This is
just,
called deliberations, that's what we're doing, is talking. We haven't called a vote, so it's still open.
well, that's my fee. Like to put service fees on people if we can avoid them by this right now.
All right, I think we're done deliberating. Why don't we start from the top, since we haven't been voting all along, and just clarify for Mr. Townsend and call a vote for each of the 7 sections we've addressed. Okay? Start at the top with that section down to 10th Avenue, and I believe it includes that little coda on the lower left.
What did we say, Richard?
What you
Oh.
said was that stayed as it is.
That it stays as drawn. Can I have a motion? Can we vote that, we had a unanimous agreement, I believe, that we're going to leave all of that?
We did.
Do we need to go through the motion
We
process?
probably don't have to vote and motion and all that, do we?
Richard,
It-
not,
It would be, yeah, you do.
I'll make a motion to keep that as is.
Second?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Okay. Yes. The second section is that triangle shape hump above the words Southwest Coast Avenue. We unanimously agreed to leave that all in.
Which you're
I
talking
don't remember
about.
the crossing street, the name of the crossing street there.
That's all in. Yeah, that's all in.
Yeah, what's that that crossing street there?
It's all in down to Bard.
we're all the way down to Barber.
Oh, okay, good, good.
As I understood it, you kept everything the way it was down to 28th.
Right.
Okay,
To 28th, yes.
okay. Motion?
I move that we approve that area all the way down to 28th as is.
I second the motion.
Aye.
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 That's unanimous. We unanimously agreed to remove the 19 or so homes north of, I believe, Southwest 29th and west of Highway 101.
Yeah, take out everything south of
28th, is it?
28th,
Mhm.
or the line sort of extending the direction of 28th over to Anchor.
Okay. Motion?
I motion that we adjust the map to delete to 28th and 29th from Anchor to 101
Second.
RD.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And then, just to be clear, that those two neighborhoods south of 29 are also included. Are
not included.
in that vote.
They're not
On the coast side of Anchor.
West of Anchor.
That's a commercial zone. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about just south of 29th.
Oh, that's included.
Yes.
That stays in the, that would stay in
Stays
the
as-
VR zone.
That was a
That's
part of
recommended.
our previous vote then. Good, okay. Good. Nelscott Heights?
I move to approve that area as it is.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Taft Heights?
I move to remove it from the VR zone.
I'll second it.
In favor of removing?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, now we get down to Cutler City. Now, north of 69th, we, I believe, with one exception, agreed to remove that strip of homes west of Fleet Street.
Between 65th and 69th,
65th and 69th, 65th.
Facing Fleet Street.
which for some reason is 3 blocks, not 4.
The 3 blocks facing Fleet
67th
Street.
doesn't exist.
You don't want any of Cutler City.
Correct. I vote against it.
Well, I recommend that we remove those strip of houses on Fleet Avenue between 60th Street.
65th. 65th. Okay, second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now we're going south of 69. I'm going to take this from Harbor Street west and then Harbor Street east. Do we have a motion to leave Harbor Street west, south of 9th in as the VR zone?
I thought we talked about taking all of that out, south of 69th Street.
So that would be implied if I don't get a motion.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a motion to remove section?
I make a motion to remove everything south of 69th Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay.
Is there do you want to state the reason for the...
My reason is I believe that this was highly recommended by the consensus committee, and I tend to agree with their recommendations. And I haven't really heard a reason to exclude it, other than it's not the character of Cutler City. All right, let's take everything east of Harbor. We have a motion to leave it in.
I think we just made a motion to remove everything south of 69th.
No, it's everything south of 69th, west of Harbor.
No, I meant everything south of 69th.
Okay, we're going to back up and take that last vote again. Is that all right? Okay. West of Harbor, south of 69th. Do we have a
That-
motion to exclude it?
That wasn't the motion, I
That was
believe.
the motion.
The motion was everything below 69.
Everything below 69
Okay.
be removed.
Okay. I'm sorry, I misheard the motion.
Sorry.
The vote again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay, same reason. We have 4-1. Take it out. 69.
Got it.
All right. Good job, guys. Back to the program. Where are we? Are we done?
Take a break. That was on about the 16.
We will, I believe the written record of the commission's recommendation is the minutes. At least I believe that's what it says in 1760. I can't remember the section of your code. So I think all that will be reflected and passed on to the council. I do want to point out that there is a lodging house limitation of 16 if you constructed after June or July 1, I believe, of 2010 for all lodging houses, if lodging house is a residential structure that you're renting. If you constructed prior to that, and going back to the 70s, there's a 5-bedroom limitation. The same definition is in the structural code. And I know we talked about retrofitting and allowing people to construct to commercial standards. The question is, I'm not really sure what you call that, because it's not really a hotel, but it's not really a residence. I don't believe that there's a single VRD in the city that's been constructed to the commercial construction standards. So I know we're talking about, we're going to have all this construction, but the typical way that this has occurred is people come in and they apply under the residential code and they build a house which has no limitation on the number of bedrooms or the number of occupants. And then they change and come in and say, I'd like a vacation rental now. The problem is that while they may have had 7 bedrooms or 8 bedrooms in their house, if they want to rent them out, they're limited to 5. So that's been the catch. They think, well, I have 7 bedrooms, I should be able to rent 7 bedrooms. The limitation is in the code. And we were encouraged to adopt our own license standard that matched, but we didn't. And what that really did was put us into an enforcement action both under the building code and under our license ordinance. So it would have been easier had we just adopted our own numeric standard. But
Well, that's why I'd like to make sure we stress to council to clear the muddy waters up.
and staff had recommended that we put a numeric number in our license ordinance, not just reference the state standard, and the council decided not to do that. But we'll forward your recommendation.
Thank you.
I don't have to wave a wand or anything to terminate the the deliberation, do I? Can we just move on to the next agenda items? Deliberations closed.
You've taken action by motion, and that's pretty much ended the matter.
Okay. Old business, any old business scheduled?
Have none?
New business?
None?
Reports and comments?
None?
City attorney?
None.
Planning commissioners?
None.
Public comments on non-agenda items not involving a public hearing. Anybody wish to speak?
I think it's been interesting that it's been a 3-year odyssey on, the various issues, and VRDs are part of the economic ecosystem that we have. And when you start arbitrarily, and I don't think any of you can give me a good reason why one of those homes is in or why it's out. Now, when you make those decisions arbitrarily, keep in mind that it's your wife, your husband, your aunt, your uncle, that, you make an arbitrary decision that impacts you zero. You're devastating some people economically. And if you're hammering somebody for $2,500, how many of you are willing to write the check today for some of these folks that want in that you're not including? I'm not. And I think that the City Council has made a total cluster of this entire thing. I can tell you that Newport is more in line with, hey, go to any town in America, pay your business license, you got your license, you open the store, if you need the fire department to look at your occupancy, you're done. Now, some of this stuff by arbitrarily creating VR zone, what you're doing is exactly the opposite of what a lot of people said. It's like what we want is we want mixed neighborhoods and quality of life. So let's make all the damn houses in this neighborhood, the entire stretch, VRDs. Oh, but careful now, because if they only grant you partial use and you petition to say, I want full use, then they whack you back to 30 days. How many of you guys could survive on 30 days of salary? That's what you're doing to these people. So it's a cluster. I would personally recommend to all of you, and I think very highly of you, you all have been elected, and the citizens of Lincoln City value all of your opinions. What I would say is send it back to the City Council, say you have no recommendation, make them fix it. Don't be the bad guys. Don't be the cleanup guys. Don't get your hands dirty. Don't get your boots dirty. Don't make a lot of enemies. It's not your fight, and it shouldn't be. So that's all I have to say. I think there's a better economic way to go. First thing, no harm. Physician's Creed, do no harm. Everybody needs to be able to be stable, and then let's find a solution that works, not piecemeal. And I applaud you guys for trying to take this on, but as you saw here tonight, you had 28, 30 questions here that you couldn't answer among yourself, and the esteemed attorney over here going, well, on the one hand it's residential, on the other hand it's commercial. Does anybody see about 30 lawsuits coming out of this thing? I don't know. I think inevitably it's going to be a vote of the people is where you need to recommend it. The referendum in May will be a start, but when you start to try and arbitrarily tell somebody how they should live, how much money they could make, again, how many of you could survive on 30 days worth of income if that's what the outcome was? I don't think anybody here could. So those are the ramifications. I highly recommend that you say, City Council, you made a mess, clean it up, we want no part of it.
Thank you for your comments.
I'd like to ask you a comment.
Yes.
Since this is public record.
I want to caution that do not engage in political activity relative to the referendum. 26432, you may not engage in political activity.
We haven't mentioned that at all.
Appointed public officer, I'm talking to my client.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What I was going to ask, without it being political,
yes,
is people have do you believe people have a right to a residential neighborhood?
Yes, I believe that the best scenario, in my personal opinion, would be what Newport has, and that is you're able to have a vacation rental anywhere in the city. Now, that keeps you away from concentrating issues, if you will.
Excuse me, hold on a second.
Yes.
Specifically, the question was, do you believe people have a right to a VRD-free neighborhood? A right?
Oh, I thought he said, what was the question again here?
To a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, I think when you talk about residential neighborhood, a residential neighborhood by definition is mixed. You have, a mix of different philosophies, religions, business types, education levels, and the like.
But residential, I was hopefully implying that people live in that house 365 days a year with their family.
Yes, and...
their family.
Yes, and I think a mixed neighborhood, I mean, in the old days, if you look at all the Midwestern neighborhoods that were built in the 1940s and 1950s, they were built as a hub and spoke, so that you had the center of town, the town park, all the administrative offices, the town square, and the whole works, and the grocery stores, the movie theater, and then out from it went all your residential neighborhoods. They were all mixed neighborhoods. They were all mixed towns. And they all worked very successfully. When we got into urban sprawl and we started pushing out miles without taking any consideration to resources and amenities and parks and things like that, we got into problems. And I think that when you're talking about fully implemented mixed neighborhoods, family neighborhoods, and you can have everything within your neighborhood. I mean, I think Olivia Beach, where you can walk to the park, you can walk to the beach, you know, those are great examples. And you know, I look back at it and I go, you know, quality of life. We need some work. I mean, the economy needs a lot of work. But I
Thank you for your comments, sir.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
I think what's gone on so far has been difficult.
Gary, is your question been answered? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none.
Yeah, just two things. I apologize. Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry for interrupting. It's just that under 26432, elected officials actually are not included, but appointed public officers and employees cannot engage in political activity relative to a referendum. So that's why I was wasn't sure whether you were reacting to the comment about the referendum, so that's why I kind of jumped in. And I believe that you've been sent that statute as a warning. Don't engage in political activity relative to the referendum. If you haven't, I apologize. I'm telling you now. Let's just stay away from that issue, speaking on the job during working hours. As a private citizen, you can have whatever opinion you want, but as you're sitting
And
here...
referendum, by the way. I'm not even aware of it.
Okay, then I'll tell you later. Essentially, the ordinances that were adopted two of the ordinances that were adopted by council were referred to the election in May. So I'll explain that to you. Also, there was a statement about 30 days, you'll get stuck with 30 days if you object again. The 30 days in the ordinances that were adopted is the expedited review option, where if you agree to limit your VRD use to 30 nights per year, the council's already predetermined that that is accessory. You don't have to go through the land use process. You go directly to a license. So that's where 30 days comes in the ordinances that were adopted. There have been statements made about if you object, you get stuck with 30 days. But just for clarity, the 30-day option is an option to basically skip the land use process and proceed directly to a license. And it's voluntary. You don't have to do it. You can go through the regular land use process.
Thank you for that clarification. Were there any other questions of the attorney? Future agenda items and the next meeting?
We have the third of four, actually the third and fourth of the four quadrants on the VR zone for the east side. North, the east, and southeast.
That's a public hearing?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. So it'll be the
East.
northeast and the southeast?
That's right.
Will you be handling them as one or separately?
Yes.
As one, okay.
Anything else? We're done.